Hi everybody, my name is Kim and welcome to my channel, Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new to my channel, I bring you bookish, foodie content, specializing primarily in nonfiction, but I do tend to dabble in fiction from time to time. Today, I am here to bring you a book duo. If you're new to my book duo series, what I'm trying to do is bring you guys different books that follow and focus on the same topic. If you're new to nonfiction, I think sometimes nonfiction can seem intimidating, but what I love about food writing is the abundance of rich storytelling that exists in food writing. One of the best places, and what I want to talk to you today about, is the front of the house. What is the front of the house? It is quite literally the front of a restaurant where your servers, your receptionist, your hostess, where all of these people work to bring you, the customer, the best experience possible. So today I want to recommend two different books for you today. The first is Setting the Table. This is by Danny Meyer, and the other is Front of House by Geoff Benjamin. It might just be Jeff, but I don't actually know the pronunciation. So, a couple of quick facts about these books. Danny Meyer's book came out in 2005. Front of House came out in 2015. So there are some important, a lot can happen in a decade. So keep that in mind as we go through these, but let's go ahead and jump on in. So if you're wondering who on earth is Danny Meyer, and maybe you recognize him from the back of the book, and if you don't, it's totally fine. Danny Meyer is the CEO of the Union Square Hospitality Group. His restaurants and their chefs have earned an unprecedented 21 James Beard Awards and perennially ranked among New York's favorite restaurants in the Zagat survey, and he lives in New York. So Danny Meyer's restaurants, what is the word I'm searching for? So sorry. Oscillate between the best in the world and something that's very approachable. Do you know Shake Shack? You know that chain where you can get really good burgers and milkshakes? That's a Danny Meyer kind of restaurant. That's actually his. All the way up to 11 Park Madison, Union Park Square. Those are white table, year in advance kind of reservations. So Danny Meyer's book, Setting the Table, is actually 2 years ago the first book I picked up that got me back into reading. I had moved to Chicago, I was by myself, my then fiance, now husband, hadn't moved yet to Chicago, and I didn't have cable and I hadn't set up any of my streaming services, so I was alone in Chicago and wanted something to read, and Danny Meyer's book was the one that got me into this world. I can pretty much thank Danny Meyer for having this BookTube channel. Thanks, Danny Meyer, wherever you are. He's got way better things to do than listen to this book channel. So Danny Meyer's book is broken up into 13 different chapters, and really, Danny Meyer's book spans everything about front of the house. And not just what does your server do, what does a hostess do, but really what's behind it. What makes you a good hire to work in Union Square hospitality? Like, do you ever wonder what makes someone a lifelong waiter or waitress or front of staff member where you work at these upscale restaurants and you're actually salaried with health insurance? That's a very different employee than maybe some of us whose first job was as a busgirl at a little Greek restaurant in her hometown where she made money off the books. Very different kind of people. Danny Meyer really goes into this book about what he's looking for, that intrinsic need to please people, to go that extra step, to go above and beyond. And it's a really fun and easy read. It's very approachable too. So because there are 13 chapters, you can read one. Each one has a moral of the story, kind of. Here's an example, and you can move on. I've become alarmingly self-aware of it. I tend to sniffle when I film videos. I will try and be more aware of that and try to cut them out in the future. The seasons are changing. I feel that my allergies are just killing me right now. I also got tested for COVID, came back negative, but I don't know if anyone else out there has had this test, but when they stick that thing up your nose, I swear, all I do is sneeze for like 12 hours after. It's so hard to sneeze all the time. Anyway, sorry. I'm just now super self-conscious about it, and it's kind of made me lose my cool. Danny Meyer's book spans many of the learnings from different restaurants that he's had, some that have been successful, most of it successful, and some that have not. I would definitely give this book a solid 4 out of 5. Partially, I'm biased. This is the book that got me back into reading. This is why I read 50 plus books every year now. And I really found it approachable, and if you've seen interviews of Danny Meyer, if you've seen him on Top Chef or any of those other cooking shows, this is authentically his voice, which I appreciate. This wasn't a ghostwriter. I felt like if I was going on a job interview with Danny Meyer, I wouldn't just shake in my boots. I wouldn't be scared out of my mind. I would be really happy and honored to work for him. And I think that's what makes Danny Meyer successful, is when he hires people, he's forging relationships. And those relationships bleed into the training for his front of house staff. How am I, as your server, going to bring that connection with that customer? What's going to make you come back every year? What's going to make me remember you, put you in my database, and remember that your son's birthday is on June 6th, and make sure you have a cake? Do you ever have that experience when a server goes the extra mile and has overheard that it's your anniversary or it's your birthday and a cake shows up or a little dessert? That's the stuff that I think makes Danny Meyer the best in the business. See, I sniffled. Sorry. Okay, so I can pay attention to where my camera is. So, Setting the Table by Danny Meyer. Other book about the front of house I want to tell you guys about is quite literally called Front of House. It is also a Burgess Lee Press recipient, or it has this seal, which means that all profits go to good causes. So Burgess Lee Press donates 100% of our after-tax profits, to culinary education, hunger relief, farmland preservation, and other food-related causes. So first off, I love that. I love that I bought a book that helped other people besides contributing to the capitalist machine, which I won't go into. So this book, what's really going on when you go out to dinner? So it follows a very similar approach to Danny Meyer's book, but now 10 years have gone by. And I think it's important to remember, especially for New York City, a lot changed post 9/11, and the culinary world really changed. And while Danny Meyer's book touches it, this book goes into a lot more of the detail of how customer service has changed slightly. In those higher end restaurants after 9/11, people were scared to go out. They were afraid to have a good time. What becomes your new normal? It's hinted on in this book, but I thought it was really important to mention this because I take a lot of respect for those who understand that restaurants around the country suffered after 9/11, but specifically the ones in New York. So this book has 8 parts. So similar to Danny Meyer's book, similar to What Learnings, the 8 parts are broken into going out to dinner, the restaurant, at your service, staff, be our guests, days of wine, putting systems in place, and come again. I found this book actually a lot more thorough about the inner kinks and wheels that make a restaurant work versus Danny Meyer's is very much injected with a lot of history, his own upbringing that explains some of his motivations for good hospitality. It's not a bad thing, it's just a slight nuance and difference. This book, focuses on opening one restaurant, and it explains even things of the art of a reservation. And I don't know about you, have you ever made a reservation and completely forgot to cancel it, or you've just gotten sick or something like that? I am guilty of that. I have gotten sick before or just got stuck at work and missed a reservation but didn't call to cancel it. This book explains things like when I set up reservations, even in a system like Open Table, each table is meant to help ebb and flow of a restaurant, of the servers, of pacing. And if you're a no-show on your table, I can fill it, but now I'm setting off a groove and a rhythm. And it was these little nuances that really made me realize what my role as a customer is, just as much as the role of, your sommelier has, and etc. I did love an area of At Your Service that also explains, again, the role of the customer and how service is a two-way street. So if we're at the restaurant and we're glued to our phones, it's hard for that waiter or waitress to build up a connection or a repertoire. Are you living in the moment? Do you even remember what you ate? It was interesting. It made me really self-aware. I did a couple years ago acknowledge I had that problem when I would go out with Dan and I wasn't in the moment. I've learned to since turn over my phone. Sometimes I'll actually slide my phone to Dan so that I don't look at it. I had a much different job when this first became a problem, when I was on call 24/7 and I was always nervous and on edge. Since I'm a little bit farther in my career, I have found a workplace that respects boundaries. Shocker, I know, but it makes it easier to put your phone down. I also only take pictures of food if I'm at a special place. For example, I went to one of Rick Bayless's restaurants for New Year's Eve with Dan, and I did want to take pictures because it was a really special occasion. But I always check with Dan, like, is it going to bother you? Because I balance between, you know, I have a booktube channel, I have a personality, I need to share content, all that kind of stuff, versus being there and in the moment, sorry. And I think that what I appreciate about this book is really how we go back and forth between the role of the people who work at the restaurant, but also what your role is as a consumer. I really love how the book ends. The last section is called Come Again, and it's ideas of what's the last chance how can I make one last final impression? Online feedback, Yelp, everyone's a critic, but there are a few pros. I think that's really true. I love the digital era. I'm a millennial, so I grew up with dial-up, I grew up with floppy disks. Now we're in a world where we're connected all the time. But I do think that there are negatives to that, and the book kind of touches on that. And part of it you can ignore, part of it you go after. When a Yelp review is like, I'm just an angry customer and I didn't get what I want, so I'm gonna give you 1 star, that can really impact why you go to a restaurant. A lot of it used to be word of mouth. Now I'm someone who does check Yelp reviews. I also do go through word of mouth with my friends. If my friend loves a restaurant, I'm most likely gonna love it too. But it is something to talk about on how that impacts hospitality and how how restaurants really handle and manage good customer service, front of house, and etc. Like, some of these major restaurants have their own social media managers, they have their own PR teams. But if you're a small mom and pop, one bad review from one angry tirade from one blogger who thinks they know everything, that can really ruin your business. So the next time you want to pick up your phone and tweet about a negative experience, just think about it before you go out and do that. Did you talk to the waiter? Did you ask for something to be changed or improved? There's so much you can change in the moment, and somehow we've learned to be non-confrontational in the moment, and then we hide behind our screens and attack people after. The next time you go out safely within COVID, wear a mask, all that stuff, but the next time you have a dining experience, think about what you can do in the moment to make you an active participant in that scene, in that restaurant. I'm not saying go back behind the kitchen and try cooking. That's not what I mean. You know what I mean. But think about if something isn't going well, how you can change it then. Can it improve your experience before going home and just being disappointed? I hope that makes sense. Okay, so this concludes another episode of Book Duos, focusing on the front of house. Oh, I forgot to say, I would actually give front of house also a 4 out of 5. I found both of these books very approachable, very non-biased, saying this is how I can also improve in the front of house, but how a customer can improve a restaurant experience. I really suggest, if you've never been a waiter or a waitress, if you've never worked in like a restaurant or hospitality, please pick one of these books up. I'd actually say pick up front of house because I know the proceeds are going to a good cause that helps support the food industry. But let me know what you think. And either of these books catch your eye? Is anyone else craving a milkshake from Shake Shack? Because I am. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe. And if you want to contribute and help support the channel, I will link both my Ko-fi and my Patreon in the description below. I hope you're all well, and I'll check you in the next video. Bye.